Welcome back to Cryptolytics, giving you a fresh take on crypto analytics. Today, we're going to look at a few ways to troubleshoot if you have bridged funds from one chain to another and you've gotten stuck on the other chain with no ability to transfer the funds or swap the funds at the destination. It's one of the main reasons why you should only send a small amount first before you bridge a larger amount. But sometimes you might forget to do that and then you might get stuck on the other side. So let's get into this one, shall we? Okay, so this video might come in handy at some point if for some reason you've just bridged some funds across from, say, Arbitrum to Injective, for example. Say you had some stable coins that you wanted to transfer and you had no way to deposit straight into the Injective network. So you've come to something like Squid Router, for example, and you've tried to, say, for example, bridge some USDC from the Arbitrum network to Injective. Now, Squid Router uses the XLR bridge in order to swap tokens. But for example, the other day I transferred some funds from Arbitrum to Injective and I couldn't swap them while they were on the chain. So this is probably helpful more so to, say, people coming into the Cosmos Hub ecosystem, because the reason why this can be an issue is like on some chains that aren't quite built out yet, they don't have all of the necessary pairs to swap between stablecoins that are bridged versions of the stablecoin. So I'll show you what I mean, for example. So say, for example, you just bridged in some USDC from Arbitrum to Injective, but you didn't check the DEXs first to see if you can swap once the funds arrive. So if we come to Dojo Swap, for example, and there's only a few DEXs in Injective and a lot of these other nascent ecosystems. So if you have a look here, you can see, for example, if I type in USDC, all we've got is just the normal USDC. We don't actually have the AXL USDC, which is the XLR USDC, which is necessary. And say, for example, you want to try and find who might have the AXL USDC. You come to coinhall.org, for example, and type in AXL USDC in this case. And we're going to have a look on different chains. Here we can see Helix apparently has this as a swap, but look, it's had no volume lately, which means that it's probably not been swapped at all, and it probably doesn't actually have any liquidity or any pool for that, because in order for a token to be swappable, it needs to have a liquidity pool, and people need to have provided liquidity to it in order to facilitate the swap. So we could try Helix, for example, and see if they actually have it, but even if they do, there's no guarantee that we'll actually be able to swap it. So what we'll do is we'll have a look here and we'll type in the list AXL, and we can see it's not in here either. So in this case, you've just sent a whole bunch of the token over in your Squid Router. The first step is to try and just send it back, right? So if you've done that and sent the funds, then your best bet is to just try and reverse and just send it straight back again. But sometimes it doesn't work. For example, in this case, if you send to AXL USDC and you tried to send it back, well, what you get is you get failed transactions. I'll just quickly show you what I mean. But first, I should probably say that a lot of the time, you're actually just better off going straight into the native asset rather than swapping into stables. But if for some reason you wanted to keep this in stable coins and you've done this, then, well, that's when you're probably going to get stuck. But I think if you bridge straight into the native asset, so that is the chain's primary token, then I don't think you would have any of these issues. It's more if you've just bridged in some stable coins or something like that. So you get this message here when using Squid Router and you try to swap internally, for example. And this won't be for everything. This will happen only if you run into an issue, right? And in this case, it means you've got this AXL USDC and it's stuck. You can't do anything with it, right? Because now that it's in there, you need to find somewhere to swap it out to a normal stablecoin like USDT or something like that. That's not the AXL prefix, but you can't find anywhere to swap it. Furthermore, you can't swap it internally within here, so you literally can't do anything with it, right? So this is where you're going to need to really think about what your options are, and you're going to have to start clicking on a lot of things to kind of work out what else you can possibly do. For example, you need to explore the options within the Kepler wallet. Most likely you probably end up looking at forums and stuff like that to try and figure it all out. But thankfully, because the Squid router uses IBC, which is the inter-blockchain communication that Cosmos is very well known for and is one of the reasons why it's quite powerful, XLR can help you get out of this sort of tricky situation. So I'm just going to black hole a couple of USDT so we can actually go through the whole process together. Now, this is the sort of thing that used to happen when I first started using the Solana ecosystem, for example, where I'd bridge assets in and there wouldn't be anywhere where I could swap them when I was going between different chains, like an EVM chain to Solana or vice versa. And more often than not, I would just send it back and try and find something else to bridge across. But as the ecosystem started getting built out more, I really didn't run into that issue anymore. So you'll find this sort of thing to be more of a problem with newer chains and ecosystems. But if you're doing airdrop farming, then that's exactly what you're going to be doing. You're going to be interacting with fairly new chains with quite limited liquidity for swaps. So this is the sort of thing you probably won't need to worry about later on, but only will probably have to consider when you're airdrop farming on newer chains. Okay, so I've just sent a couple of bucks over from Mantle and it took a long time. So yeah, anyway, that was from Mantle to Injective. So as you can see, it's using XLR. So when you do use Squid Router and you click on like the information button, after you've done a swap transfer bridge, it'll bring up an XLR scan page. So you can see, you know, where it's at with regards to the bridging, what stage it's at and all that sort of stuff. And sometimes at this stage, you actually have to also confirm, depending on what you're doing. But nevertheless, after you've bridged in, you might go to something like Dojo Swap and you'll be like, well, hang on, what's the deal? I've just clicked USDC, but it's not coming up, right? So you can see it's in the wallet here, right? It's sitting right here in the list of assets under the Kepler dashboard, but you can't swap it. You can't do anything with it, right? One thing you can do just to completely exhaust your options is come over to DeFi Llama and find the chain that you're on and just find all the DEXs basically and just click on them and maybe one of them will have it. So in this case, we'll just jump onto Astroport because they support Injective, say Terra and Neutron. So, you know, you come and have a look at your list of assets and, you know, it would probably be here and available if you had it, because generally it puts the assets that you have a balance in up the top. So the fact that it didn't appear means that, well, it's just not there. So it's got USDC.ETH, so I guess it's an Ethereum bridged USDC, but nothing else there. So you checked all the DEXs, and at this point you would probably be like, well, I guess the best bet is just to send it maybe to Osmosis, I would say, because Osmosis does have AXL USDC. If we come over to Osmosis, you'll see it. There it is right there. So maybe at this point you would be like, well, I can't swap it anywhere else, so maybe I can bridge it over to Osmosis, right? And that should be pretty quick because it's part of the IBC and the Cosmos hub, so it should be relatively quick. Now, if you do this, you probably won't have any Osmo, so this is where you'd probably turn on arrival gas, so that when some of it arrives, it converts it to a little bit of an Osmo. Well, in this case, I shouldn't do that because I've got $2, but I've already got Osmo anyway as gas because I have had to do this sort of crazy stuff before. So in this case, you might be like, all right, let's do that. Try and send it over so we can swap it to USDT or something else within there. Now, unfortunately, with Injective and maybe any other new future Cosmos blockchains, you get this. So at this point, you're like, well, what do I do now, right? I mean, I've tried to swap it, I've tried to bridge it back out. There's nothing you can really do, and it's almost like this is literally black hole. It's very rare you get this far deep into this whole process and get stuck this badly. I think the Cosmos hub is probably the only time it's ever been this bad with regards to being able to black hole funds and assets. It might just be Injective, but you know, it could be others as well, right? So in this case, you are kind of stuck. You know, there might be a native bridge, for example. In this case, it might be worth, you know, checking out the blockchain's bridge to see if they have any options, because they'll have their own bridge, right? Well, in this case, unfortunately, only Osmo and Injective are available to Osmo. So there's a pretty good chance that that'll basically be where the buck stops on that, because you'll only be able to bridge a couple of different assets. And a lot of the time they aren't stable coins. Unfortunately, if they are stable coins, it will just be something like USDT or USDC normal, not the XLR. Well, this is where the XLR comes to the rescue, I guess, right? So if we want to try and get this over anywhere, if it's this stuck, we're gonna have to use IBC and XLR to help get us out. I mean, technically XLR got us in this mess, but thankfully it can help us get us out of it as well. So there's one thing you'll see when you look in your wallet. You'll see this little button next to some tokens where it says IBC, which is just inter-blockchain communication, right? So anything that says IBC, you can actually swap and bridge from within your wallet. In this case, using channel 84, which is the USDC.AXL on XLR. So if you click on this, now you might need gas in XLR. So in this case, you might need to come back to Squid Router and say, if you've got some funds, you might need to first, to pay for gas, because it's technically another chain. Come over to XLR here like this. We actually want the XLR token. So you can't do this obviously because that will just fail, but you might be able to come from somewhere else in order to get this. So say you've got a little bit of funds, maybe try to switch to something just Cosmos if you can, so that way the bridging time is a lot faster, because anything from the EVM, the bridging time can take quite some time, so might not necessarily be worth it. But nevertheless, just find a Cosmos chain that you have a little bit of money on and select the asset and just give yourself a little bit. You wouldn't need that much for gas, to be honest. So all you need is a couple of dollars, I would say, for gas, because you just need this for bridging. But to be honest, I've actually started buying a XLR token because I think it's pretty good. Because it can facilitate all of this very complex bridging. I've decided to start actually adding it to my bags and staking it. But I've left a little bit in here for gas just in case I get stuck again when doing any other bridging. So yep, you could just buy it this way, or however else you would be able to do it. If your exchange supports it, then that would be fine, but I just much prefer doing it all on chain. So yeah, anyway, I think XLR is a pretty good pick, and I think has a lot of potential. But at least for the sake of getting gas, you can just come through and do it here at the Squid Router. We're going to come back over here and we're going to click this IBC. We're going to click IBC send, and we're going to click this home chain here. Now what this is going to do is this is going to send it to the XLR network. We're just going to click max. It'll automatically populate with your XLR address within your Kepler wallet. Going to click next and approve. The gas is actually being paid in Injective, so that's fine, but we'll have to swap it within, which will require XLR for gas anyway, right? So we're going to move this across, select this. As you can see, it's already popped in, nice and quick there. And we're going to send this to Osmosis as standard USDC, not Axel USDC. The reason why I'm picking Osmosis because it has the most number of assets out of any other chain. So sending it there, it won't get stuck. So it's probably a good spot for it. But now that it's on XLR, I think you probably will be able to go just about anywhere with this. So say for example, you just wanted to hold it as USDC. Well, Osmo's probably a good spot, to be honest, for that. Or you can just pick whatever chain it is you actually really wanted to go on to. Now that it's out and unstuck, you could just go and buy Injective if you want to by selecting here and then clicking Injective. If you actually just wanted to buy Injective and just don't select the stablecoin. And then once it's in the network, use Dojo Swap to swap it to a stablecoin. Oh, that gets kind of ridiculous. Or you can just basically send it to Osmosis, and because Osmosis will have a lot of these, so it has Injective, for example, it'll have a lot of these already on there, and just send as normal USDC, so you don't have to do anything crazy with it. And if you don't have any Osmo, then just turn on your arrival gas, so that will convert part of it to, that's this one here, so it'll convert part of it to Osmo. So that way you've got a little bit of money for gas. We're going to click submit, and this will now bridge from the XLR network to Osmosis. So we're getting an approval message. It's not failing like it did last time, which is always a good sign. And because this is IBC, Cosmos Hub, this will be very quick. So you won't really have to wait very long for that. I'm just going to click done because it's going to be very quick. And here it is, look at that. So yeah, from Osmosis, you can buy your Injective, you can buy, there's a whole massive list of assets that you can buy in Osmosis. And you've also got pools and stuff in here as well, if you wish. Arbitrum, Filecoin, that's Pepe, the OG, the proper Pepe. Yeah, there's a whole big list here anyway. But again, once it's in Osmosis, you can either buy the asset and manage it within here. You probably want to send it to the native chains though, especially for staking. But nevertheless, if it is Injective that you wanted to buy, then you would just buy it here, or once it's in Osmosis, I think it's a lot easier to bridge out from there because Osmosis has a lot of different assets, as I mentioned. So that's pretty much it. Essentially, once it's in here, you can send it to anywhere you want and it won't be stuck anymore. Basically, it's about just getting it out of whatever chain you selected using the IBC button. And then once it's in XLR, you should be able to bridge it to wherever you need to. But there's no swap platform that I'm aware of on XLR, so it's better just to bridge it out into something like Osmosis where you can swap to a lot more different assets. But that's pretty much it, really. I know it can be pretty daunting if you didn't do a test transaction and you just sent like, a few $100s and it's just been blackholed and you can't do anything with it. There's always a way to get it out, but sometimes it requires some perseverance. So I hope this was helpful to anyone out there that has sort of come across this before. Maybe you've got some assets that are stuck somewhere that you just were not sure what to do with. Maybe you contacted a support and they never got back to you, which, It's kind of how it goes sometimes. So maybe if you've ever come across this situation and you weren't able to resolve it, it just kind of shows that, yeah, with a bit of perseverance, with a lot of this stuff, you can actually kind of figure it out. But the fact that, you know, this stuff still happens, I guess shows that we're still pretty early, to be honest. But also, I must admit that the days of this sort of stuff happening, I don't see as much anymore. But you will likely have this happen to you if you're bridging to a new chain and you're doing some airdrop farming. So if this video helped you, then if you could please give it a like, that would be greatly appreciated. And if you like this content and you want to see more in the future, then feel free to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell notification so you get notified when I release videos in the future. I will likely be doing some more Solana videos shortly because we have the dupe airdrop, and not just that, but we also have the new Wen meme coin, which is getting airdropped to anyone who's used Jupiter for the last 6 months or so, and everyone's getting some of that with at least $5 interaction. So there's another airdrop. Also, just quickly, I will cover this in future videos, but there is an amazing website for airdrops related to the Cosmos ecosystem, and I did post it on X, the website, but I'll show you now what it looks like. So it just goes to show that it's definitely worth still buying something like the Osmo token, because if you come over to this cosmosairdrops.io website, this is all of the up and coming and claimable airdrops. It's pretty cool. It actually tells you when you need to be staking by, and you can look at upcoming, for example, like Alt Layer, which I did post on my X, and this one is staking Celestia, and the snapshot was on the 17th. So really, really cool resource. So if you've been staking, in this case, for example, Hava, which is like another dog coin, you'll see if you've been staking Atom, Injective, or Osmo, or Celestia before the 23rd of January, then you'll be eligible for this one. And you'll see Alt Layer most likely, which not available for Celestia stakers just yet, but it's another good one and one worth checking out. So yeah, if you've been staking Osmo, then maybe you can get onto this sale token, and you can just come over here and see what else you might be eligible for. Dimension was a really big one. Not sure if you were eligible for it, but if you were, good work. I didn't have my Celestia staked in time for that, so unfortunately I missed out. But I think a lot of these airdrops will probably be just a little bit of money, but sometimes they're pretty good, so you know, you can't really complain when it comes to free money. But anyway, it's my last bit of alpha for this video, so keep safe out there. This is Cryptolytics signing out. Have a good one.